Hello everyone, my name is Muir, and this is Starsector version 0.96a-RC10, and this is the Combined Arms Paragon. Now, if this video gets 200 likes, I will consider making a new playthrough of Starsector using pure vanilla, and we'll be using our Combined Arms combat doctrine that will feature all of these ships. Well, except for the mule at the bottom. That's just so I can put my pilot somewhere. But, alright, let's go ahead and get into the build. The first thing you want to look at are the skills. These are the skills that we will be using for this build. If you don't intend to use any redacted ships, you can just take this and put it anywhere else. You can put it here to make your phase ships ever so slightly better, but it is completely optional. After that, let's look at the officer we want to be putting on this. So, the officer that we want on this Paragon, she has elite helmsmanship, elite combat endurance, elite impact mitigation, elite field modulation, and then just normal target analysis and gunnery implants. The reason for that is capital ships really need an officer with a lot of really nice skills flying them, commanding those ships. If you just have something like a Paragon or something and it doesn't have an officer on it, it's not going to do so well. So just keep that in mind. But alright, how does this ship work? Well, as I said, this is the Combined Arms Paragon. It is designed to be used with the Combined Arms Doctrine, which is basically taking warships, carriers, phase ships, and then some sort of tanking, blocking ship to, in essence, create a big screen that the enemy has to fight through. Now, in this case, this is the warship that does all the damage. As you can see, we have 4 high-intensity lasers here, and these guys are what will do the vast majority of the damage to enemy ships whenever their shields go down. This also has an ion beam. Ion beams are incredibly powerful in Starsector because the enemy AI wants to do everything in its power to avoid taking EMP damage. So as long as you have an ion beam shooting it, it will be loath to drop its shields. So you can sometimes just overload them very easily just for the simple fact that they don't want this hitting them at all, ever. After that, we have the Graviton Beam. The Graviton Beams have received a slight buff. The buff is in this special effect that it does, where they increase the amount of shield damage a ship takes by 5, 8, and 10%. Per Graviton Beam, you have 1 for 5, 2 for 8, and 3 for 10. So it's actually incredibly useful now instead of being a slightly better tactical laser. After that, we have 2 burst PD lasers up front. This is just so we can clear out missiles a little bit more effectively, but you don't actually need these too much because the ship will most likely use its fortress shield to block a lot of missiles. If you want to, you could change these to tactical lasers, but you're probably better off with these, just so it can help clear fighters more effectively. After that, we have a long-range point defense lasers all around. These ones in the back will actually turn around and start helping these when you're shooting an enemy ship, which is kind of interesting. We have 2 hypervelocity drivers. These guys are actually crucial to the build here, because these are the only things we have that really put hard flux on the enemy ships. So what that means is that this Paragon can go 1-to-1 with the whatever the remnant capital is. The old capital. I think they have another one in this version of the game. So this guy can, with a good officer, this can basically 1v1 an enemy remnant capital ship, the one that teleports. After that, we have these salamanders on these. So these small missile slots, they're somewhat circumstantial. You can put swarm missiles in here, but I find salamanders are just a bit more useful because the Paragon is really slow. So being able to stop enemy ships from moving so you can actually chase them down is somewhat useful. After that, let's look at our hulls and features. We have auxiliary thrusters, because this thing turns about as quickly as you would expect something the size of New York City to turn. We then have flux distributors. One thing about flux distributors and flux coil adjuncts now is that when you build them in, they actually come to parity with just normal vents and capacitors. So, what that means is that if we were to look at the cost of this, it would come to about 200, costing around 10 ordnance points. Push this out there. Normally, you're only getting 150 dissipation for that on a capital ship, but when you build it in, it gets the other 50, basically making it the same as these vents. So after that, we have, and the same thing it goes with the flux coil adjuncts as well. They now, if you build them in, you get the extra 1,000 there, bringing them up to parity with this. But alright, after the distributor, we have hardened shields, stabilized shields, flux coil adjunct, advanced turret gyros, and blast doors. We have these two maxed out. To get these to 55, you will need to make sure you pick this one up, flux regulation. I'll let you add an extra 5 to these. So you may be thinking that maybe that 5 isn't that important, and it isn't, but being able to reduce this as much as possible is actually a pretty big deal. So what about our weapon groups? We have our high-intensity lasers here and there. They're on different groups because we want the ship's AI to be able to toggle these off as needed to save on flux. So if it is toggling these two off, that's not really that big of a deal. And the ship, once it gets to about half soft flux or hard flux, it will start toggling some of its weapons off of auto fire just so it can try to stay under 50% flux, 50% max flux. When it's below that, it'll pretty much just fire everything all the time, whenever it can. But alright guys, that is the Combined Arms Paragon. Again, no association with the mod Combined Arms, it's just the fleet doctrine we would be using. If this video gets 200 likes, then we will probably make another series on Starsector, but only one. But alright guys, hope this has been useful to you. Remember, this is intended to be used with other ships of the Combined Arms Doctrine. Specifically, the Paragon is intended to be used with the Combined Arms Astral, which we will probably be getting into next video. But alright guys, hopefully this has been useful to you. And go ahead and leave me a like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, follow me on Twitch if you want, and I guess I'll see you later. Bye everyone.